Hey, how you doing? Thanks for downloading the show. This is Garden Fork Radio. It's my eclectic DIY podcast. My name's Eric. I have a YouTube channel where I do kind of a wide range of, hey, let's try this and see what happens kind of stuff. And the podcast, which you're listening to right now, is an extension of that where I get to talk with my friends and interesting guests about cool stuff. So welcome. This is your first time. Thanks for hanging out. Today I have Serena from the website and YouTube channel called ThriftDiving, like thrift store, and diving like diving board, ThriftDiving.com, or go to YouTube and type in ThriftDiving. And I met Serena at the Troy Built get-together that I was invited to in Cleveland. Troy Built is a regular sponsor of the show for 4 or 5 years now, is it? You guys know more than I do how long. Anyway, so I met Serena there, and literally in the hotel lobby we were meeting, and just kind of immediately clicked. She just has this, she has an incredible drive and energy, and I'm like, I want that. And she was very generous with her time, and she's really knows how to run a blog really well, and I was asking her a lot of almost annoying questions, and she was kind enough to answer me with some of them. So as we got to know each other, I'm like, hey, would you like to be in the podcast? And she said yes. And she actually scheduled the talk because you know how flaky I am about this kind of thing. She's like, okay, we're going to do it on Friday at 9:30 a.m. And then she sent me follow-up emails to remind me. Well, I need more guests like that. Aaron's like that too, by the way, from The Impatient Gardener, who will be on soon. Anyway, this is my conversation with Serena. And I'll see you at the end. Hey, Serena, welcome to the show.
Hey, Eric, what's going on? Thank you for having me.
I almost didn't get here in time. I was literally in the car, and I stopped at my friend's vegetable stand, and I talked for 20 minutes, and then I realized I had a phone call to make.
Well, I was literally in bed with my hair up and looking like craziness, and I thought, I got to get up and shower, and I'm going to talk to Eric soon. And I'm glad because I had a super busy week. There have been so many projects going on, and they're all converging at one time. And sometimes, you forget to shower. I don't know if that happens to you, but this week it happened to me twice. My family was not very happy.
Yeah, people in the podcast know my showering habits already, and it usually just amounts to my better half saying, you need to take a shower.
You're like, okay.
Oh, I have this great idea for... Laura Kampf has a YouTube channel, and she made this wood-fired water heater for her outdoor shower. And it reignited an idea in me for a solar heated water for an outdoor shower.
Oh my. Okay, I think you might have just given me my project for next spring.
I'm going to sketch it out. I'll send you the sketch I'm going to do. But anyway.
Yes, please do. That sounds so much fun.
So in the intro, I told everyone that you have a YouTube channel and that we met at the YouTube meetup in Cleveland, which was a lot of fun.
Yes.
Every year there, I kind of click with someone, and you just sat down and started talking to me, and I'm like, all right, here we go.
You know what? That event was so much fun. This was for Troy Built. And, I really didn't know what to expect. I did know 2 of the influencers who were going. And so I knew there would be some people there that I didn't know. And I was really happy to meet you. And I was telling you that you have this way about you of just making everybody around you feel comfortable. And I don't know if it's what you say or how you say it, but you are just full of jokes all the time. And I'm like, this guy. And so then when I actually had a chance to watch Garden Fork, I thought, wow, after a couple minutes, I wasn't bored. I didn't turn away. Like, you kept my interest throughout the entire video, and you sort of told a story, and I'm getting this firsthand look at this thing that you're doing, this garden, was a planter that you did from a tree stump.
Yeah.
And it was just such a fun video to watch. And I was like, wow, I really like your storytelling.
Thank you. You can be on the podcast again now.
Thank you. I'll check that off my list of, okay, compliment Eric.
I'll be sending you the jar of maple syrup.
Yes, please do. I keep thinking about that too.
Well, I liked yours because it's stuff that I would never think to do. So, do you have your like creation story? What got you? Why did you start a YouTube channel?
Okay, so I'll take you on a little backtrack in time. So, and I'll try to make it short. I know we don't have a lot of time. People are probably driving in their cars right now. When I was growing up, I always wanted to be creative. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a writer. And then, you grow up and life happens and you go to college and you choose something that makes sense. And now I'm a blogger, a DIY blogger at ThriftDiving. And I refinish furniture. I build things and upcycle, repurpose. And so I'm realizing this childhood dream, but it didn't happen until probably about 2010 when we bought this old house. It was a 1973 house. There was wallpaper everywhere. There were avocado green toilets. Ooh. And the toilets in the shower matched green turquoise. It was horrible. And the problem is that we had spent all of our money buying this house. We went from a 2-bedroom to a 4-bedroom, that we needed money to decorate, and there was no money. And I literally, Eric, I'm not kidding you, I literally didn't think about how we were going to decorate the house. When you go from 2 bedrooms to 4, there's a lot of echoes in that house.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, I think I forgot something. So I've always loved thrift stores, but I love them for books and clothing and things. I never really thought about buying furniture, even though I dabbled a little bit in furniture. And so I started going to one of my favorite thrift stores and finding so much amazing stuff that, like, my dining room table was $12. And I mean, literally $12. And I taught myself, it was like that golden oak color, it wasn't really like, it wasn't a bad quality table, but it just, it wasn't bad for a family moving into, a new home, but it was not the color I wanted. So I taught myself how to refinish furniture. And I'm not kidding you, literally 95% of the furniture that we have in our house came from the thrift store.
Perfect.
I mean, seriously. And if we have it, that we purchased it, it's from, probably 2002. So over time, my blog evolved into from painting furniture to suddenly, I want to learn how to use power tools and remove toilets and put up crown molding. So my blog has taken this journey from being creative to really being handy. And now I'm a carpentry student at my local community college. So now I want to actually start building walls and learning how to do more hands-on things with tools and understanding the construction of homes and not just painting furniture. So now it's just a little bit of everything, and gardening too.
So now you're going to start building your third home.
You know what? That is my dream. That is my dream, really, is to build a home from scratch. Now, I don't know when that's going to happen, but I think my next goal is going to be to build a shed. If I can build a shed, then maybe I can build. And I was telling you earlier that I'm working on cleaning out my garage. Like, we creatives, and I don't know if you're the same way, Eric, but when I do a project, I don't clean up after I'm done the project. No. I move on to the next thing. Do you clean up?
No, I'll send you a picture of my workshop.
And see, the thing is my husband doesn't understand. So he comes out into the garage yesterday and he's just shaking his head and he's like, I don't know why you brought all this mess. I'm like, well, it's not just me. I work with companies, I work with brands. They send me things, but then I'm also creative with these things. And I don't put things back. I don't think any creative person does. And he just didn't get it. He was like, I don't understand you. So good. I'm glad to know that you're confirming that I'm right.
Yeah, I actually will show glimpses of the chaos in the workshop from time to time, just to reassure people that we're all messy. So yeah. Did you start making videos when you started your blog, or was that something later?
Well, so when I started my blog, I'm sorry. Yeah, I say I'm always going to make this a short story and it ends up being a long one. So when I started my blog in 2010, it was really just documenting what I was doing in the house. But then in 2012, I started getting word that people were making money with their blog. And I thought, wait a minute, I've been doing this for free for 2 years and people are making money? So it was literally October 2012. I decided I was going to do my first YouTube video. I was working outside of the home at that time. I am full-time, blogger, YouTuber now. And I used a sick day, and I called in sick because I wanted to paint my fireplace. And I had this special kit that I ordered online, and I was going to do it and show people how I did it. And that was my very first video. And I have always been someone who was creative back. Remember those big camcorders you'd sit on your shoulder?
Yeah. I had one.
From what's that really funny comedy, National Lampoon's Vacation, European Vacation. So when I was in high school, we had rented one of those, and I remember setting it up on the table and just kind of leaning down on my knees, and I said, "Hi, this is Serena coming to you live from Marburn Road." So I used to pretend that I was on camera all the time. So in 2012, when I decided that I was going to go, quote unquote pro and try to make money at this, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a YouTube channel. And the crazy thing is that I'm very comfortable in front of the camera, and I had no idea really all these years that I had a talent for it. So that's, and I kept doing it. I enjoyed it, and I kept doing it. And even when there was no one watching the video, I just loved being on camera and showing people from start to finish what happened with my project. And this includes the fails too, not just, hey, I'm so perfect. No, it's, I can't believe I just did that. Look what I did. Here's how we're going to fix it. So that's how I got started.
Yeah, when the Troyville people first introduced us by email, I just did this kind of deep dive into your YouTube videos, and I liked how you're kind of making something out of nothing. It's like, okay, there's this kind of beat up table, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, look at that. And I'm not good with colors and stuff. The camera operator is much better, but I would never think to do the things you did. And is that just kind of innate, or did you learn that in school or something, or just by doing, or?
I think I just learned it by doing, Eric. Like I said, I think I've always been creative, but there was a part of me that sort of lost that creativity. You go to college and you think, oh, I'm supposed to graduate and get a job and sit in an office with four walls and do that every day. Yep. And so when we bought this house, it was almost like this house saved my life, because it gave me a reason to get back into being creative. And I'm getting goosebumps as I'm talking about it, because it's that important to me, is, giving yourself time to experiment with things. And I started actually thinking about that. How does somebody become creative? How do you take something or junk or an old table and turn it into something else? And I don't know if I did a video on this, but I actually wrote a blog post on this with asking yourself the right questions. So for example, let's say you remove a shutter from your house, you're doing some project. And instead of just throwing it in the pile, why not turn it into a different direction and ask yourself, well, what does this remind me of? What if I turn this upside down? Could I use it for something else? Or what if I add legs to it and make it taller? Could it become a bench or a table? Or, so by asking yourself certain questions, even if you don't think you're a creative person, everybody could come up with some ideas just by asking these detailed questions. And I can send that to you too. So if maybe your audience wants to look at that, but yeah, it's a great way to, I think everybody is creative, and I think it's a great way to ask yourself these pointed questions. For me, I think it just comes natural. Oh, if I turn it this way or do that, I could turn it into something else. So yeah, you just have to learn to ask the right questions about certain things.
For me, it sometimes has to sit in the corner for a while and I look at it.
Yes. Well, let me tell you of this one project that I did. It was a toddler bed. My youngest son had outgrown it, and I actually bought it at the thrift store, and I was going to redonate it back to the thrift store, which I do a lot. And I put it into the back of my van, but with beds and thrift stores and cribs, like certain things you can't donate, and they won't take it if it's real rickety and wobbly. So I said, well, this, I probably just need to tighten it up, but I think I'll just make, firewood out of this. Well, as I was pulling it out of the back of my van, I set the toddler bed straight up, and I thought, oh my goodness, that looks like a gardening bench. Now it looks like a gardening bench for kids, but what if I build a platform and make it a little higher. And I can actually send you that as well. And it's been sitting out on my patio now as a gardening bench, painted a beautiful poppy color, and just added a few little details, some cedar to the top, and I made a garden bench out of it. Something that would have just been discarded or, maybe tossed in a landfill or something is now, this cool piece of furniture that's on my patio.
I love that. And then you can remember when your large teenager was a kid,
Exactly. When you look at this furniture and you're like, well, I did that with a crib, with cribs, certain cribs you can't donate, especially like the drop side, because kids were getting stuck in them.
Yeah.
And I had a drop side crib for, my oldest son. Well, I didn't want to just, trash it. So I cut the ends of the crib off and I made a coffee table for my patio and just, again, put some cedar boards over top, and it served its purpose for about a year or two on my patio. So you just have to think of how can I use parts of things and do something different with it than just getting rid of it.
Do you ever do anything with street finds? I mean, do you happen to be driving down the subdivision road and people like have a thing that's stuck at the mailbox there and you grab it?
Oh, yes, that's definitely happened. Yep. Anything is up for grabs. But, the thing that I've learned is that over time, when you have this passion for like refinishing things, what happens is that your garage starts to get really, really packed. And so and so my husband complained at that time as well. But one thing that I started doing was pulling back a little bit. Like I'll see something great on the curb and I'll say, oh, it looks good, but I don't have the space. So now, when my garage is overrun, it's usually overrun with tools and gardening things. I don't bring as much furniture home now because we've pretty much decorated most parts of our home. Mm-hmm. So if there is something I bring home, it has to replace something else so that you don't become a pack rat. But there's been times I was I lived in this more upscale neighborhood in Brooklyn, mm-hmm. and there was this oak dresser out on the curb, with the trash, and mm-hmm. the sanitation guys were coming down the street, so I'm pulling out the drawers and I'm getting ready to put this in my car, and the sanitation guy's going, no, we want that. I'm like, no, I want that. So, I mean, I didn't have to wrestle with him, but I was like, come on, guys, the boss wants this. He's like, oh, okay, but it was such a nice piece of furniture that the sanitation, and they oh my gosh.
So that's amazing what they see, I would think.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, it to me, it doesn't make any sense that people get rid of stuff like this, but that's the thing. Sometimes people don't see that it can be something amazing. The show that was on Netflix, Marie Kondo.
Yep.
Yes. So I think what's happening, like right now, there's this big boom in thrift store donations. People are just getting rid of everything because they're like, oh, this doesn't spark joy. This doesn't spark joy either. But the thing people have to realize is that sometimes with just a coat of paint, even if you don't think you're creative, the information is there, and it's really not hard to paint furniture. I mean, it's almost like you can't mess it up as long as you pick the right products to use. And I have information on my blog about that too. But, sometimes just a different color will suddenly make you think, oh my gosh, this is great. I mean, especially if you've got old furniture from like your grandparents or your mother, you can reuse that stuff because it's usually better quality than the stuff you buy in the stores now.
This is part of the show where we thank our patrons. Patrons are listeners who are tossing Garden Fork Radio a couple bucks a month, kind of like a monthly, kind of like NPR or PBS does. I ask for $3 a month or more. If you have more, you can. If not, I completely understand. I have a roof over my head, so I'm okay. All right. New people, actually, this is the first of the month, and Al G is our new supporter. That was very cool. And also wanted to thank last month's new patrons are Nicole and Brian, so that adds a couple more dollars. That helps me buy new microphones like the one I'm using here, get out and go do things. It's just, I really appreciate it. So thank you for that. If you're interested in that, there are links in the show notes of the podcast here, and also just go to patreon.com/gardenfork. Thank you all for listening. Any thoughts? Radio@gardenfork.tv. All right. Back to the show. Well, that was going to be my next question, is kind of a quick we can reference to your blog, which is ThriftDiving.com. Mm-hmm. Thrift like thrift store, and then diving like diving board. ThriftDiving, all one word. So your typical piece of furniture is going to have stain and then maybe polyurethane on top. Mm-hmm. And how can you get paint on top of that without the paint flaking off?
Yeah, there's a lot of paints that are on the market now that are like, I consider them furniture paints. There's paints that you buy at like Home Depot or Lowe's or any of those stores that are like regular latex wall paint. Some DIY bloggers will use that, and you can, but the process is a little different. So I would always recommend people to get a good furniture paint. And can I mention some of the brands?
Yeah, because I know nothing about this. So yeah.
Sure. Well, some of the brands that people probably have heard about is Annie Sloan chalk paint. And what it is, it has a calcium carbonate in it, and it just makes it a lot hardier for sticking to virtually almost any surface. So there's Annie Sloan chalk paint. There's one that I actually am going to be using soon, Country Chic. Beyond Paint is another one. They're a brand that I worked with in the past, but I find that it's really easy to use just out of the bottle. If you've never painted anything, they even recommend using a roller. I mean, anybody has rolled their walls, right? Yeah. So if you can roll your walls, you can roll your furniture. About the chipping, like I said, with these furniture paints that are on the market now, they say, oh, there's no stripping, there's no sanding. You can just open up the bottle and, well, that's true for the most part. I mean, you want to make sure you clean it with a good degreaser, like maybe Simple Green. Once you clean it, you can paint it, even if it's got top coats on it. But here's the thing. If it's a piece that's got a lot of traffic on it, so if it's like a kitchen table, a dresser top, places where there's going to be a lot of things put on top of it, yep, you definitely have to probably do about 2 or 3 coats of paint. And you're going to want to do like a top coat, 2 or 3. So you're doing multiple layers. So one thing that's kind of like, I don't want to say if it's a misnomer, but some of these furniture paints will say, oh, there's no priming. You don't have to prime. Well, because you're adding so many coats, it's like a primer. Mm-hmm. So, you don't have to strip it. So when you think of painting furniture, you don't have to necessarily strip it down to the bare wood and then paint it. That's what a lot of people think they have to do nowadays, and they don't. If you want to lightly just sand it, that's fine. I usually don't, but I think you probably would get better results if you just lightly sand it. And just know you're going to have to add 2 or 3 coats plus a top coat, 1 or 2 coats of that, especially if it's going to be something that's getting a lot of wear and tear. And then you've got, beautiful furniture that looks updated. It looks more light and airy. Some of the older stuff, it's just so dark and dreary.
Yeah.
But here's what I tell people, and I've got a post on my blog, and I believe I even did a YouTube video. When should you not paint wood furniture? So if there's something that's an antique, and by antique, I mean something that's at least 100 years old, or something that's got a lot of value, don't paint those. Because right now, painting furniture, it's kind of trendy, but I feel like it's starting to move back to more natural furniture. So don't do it just to be trendy. Don't do it and ruin the value of something. Or if you're like Grandma Betty is going to roll over in her grave because you painted her hutch from like 1850, don't do that. Don't do that. Wood, when I first started working with wood, I don't consider myself to be a woodworker, but there are things that I've built. For example, my bathroom vanity, I built that from scratch. That was the first large piece that I had built.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and it turned out really, really nice. I mean, there was some kinks in there, maybe some drawers that didn't close quite properly.
Those are hard to do.
Yes, but for a first attempt, it was really good. And buying that wood and finishing that wood in the way that I did, and again, I'll leave links if you have show notes.
Yeah.
But it really caused me to look at the value of wood. Buying that red oak was not cheap. And to think of even slathering paint on that beautiful piece of vanity, I thought, maybe I shouldn't be painting furniture as much. Let's take it case by case. So look at the piece. If you've got a beautiful wood grain on there, especially if it's an oak, you can actually do some really cool finishing where you're using like liming wax, where it's like a white wax. I don't know if you've heard of that, Eric, but it
No.
settles into the grain. Oh, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful finish. And so it's called liming wax, Liming, but it's also called like cerused oak. So it's taking oak with that deep grain and just rubbing that wax into the grain so that you can see the grain. It's highlighted. And if you go to my YouTube channel, if you go to ThriftDiving and search for, I think it was a wooden chest. Just type in ThriftDiving wooden chest. There's a wooden chest. Honestly, it looks like a casket. The shape of it looks like a casket, but it was a $40 chest, oak chest that I got from the thrift store. It was a little worn. It was that golden oak color I didn't like. And I thought, you know what, we're going to do some wood dye and do some liming wax. And the finish of it is just absolutely gorgeous. So if you've got oak, don't just paint it, like really highlight that beautiful grain. And another time when you shouldn't paint furniture is if you're using the wrong products. So for example, if you're just, getting a can of spray paint and you could do that, but do that on things that are like laminate, like cheap IKEA stuff.
Yep.
Don't do that on good quality wood.
I'm a big IKEA fan.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever do anything with stuff from IKEA, kind of rehack it into something else, or?
I don't specifically buy stuff from IKEA to do that with, but there was a garden. Oh gosh, what do you call it? It was like a kitchen cart that I found. I found it at the thrift store. It was actually probably $60 at IKEA, but I found it for $20 at the thrift store.
Yay.
And yes, I know, right? Love a discount. And I actually turned it into, it was almost, I called it a command center. It was really cool. Like I removed the slats on the second shelf and used my router to route some pieces of wood and turned it into like a file cabinet. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was a really cool project.
I have to see this now.
Yeah. I don't think I did a video because back then I was not filming everything. Now on my YouTube channel, I film everything. I mean, if I'm cleaning my car out, I film it because I'm like, this could be content.
Some good footage.
But yeah, back then, it was, my videos were coming every now and then. I would maybe film it or maybe not, but now everything gets filmed. So I do have the blog post. I'll send you that link.
Neat.
But yeah, so I don't do a lot of IKEA stuff, but really it's the projects that I work on are the projects that I'm really, really passionate about. And I think it has to be that way. So that's why I don't know about you, but I don't plan my content out in the future. I don't know what I'm going to be working on.
Oh, good. You're like me then.
Yes.
I was in the car and I'm like, what am I going to do this weekend?
For me, it's all about, and I know like from a business standpoint, it's really not the way to operate, but I feel like when you operate from a place of passion, people can feel that passion and they're much more likely to love what you do because they see the excitement and the pride that you feel when you've made something and you're like, oh my gosh, guys, you're not going to believe this. It turned out so good. Here's how it went. People feel that. But if I just have to make something because it's on the calendar, I'm not really feeling it. So I'm like you. I operate just whatever I feel passionate about. So who knows? I may find a piece of furniture from IKEA and be like, oh, you know what? That would look great with this. So I can't say it won't come.
Do you shop on Amazon? I shop locally and also on Amazon and other online stores. If I need something very specific, like seat covers for the new used car we just bought, I will go online and sometimes use Amazon. And Garden Fork happens to have a dedicated shopping page on the Amazon site now, which is very cool. It is an affiliate linked page. We do get a finder's fee for anything that you buy when you start shopping from that page. But I list there interesting items that I think are worthy of the Garden Fork DIY person. It's amazon.com/shop/gardenfork. If you would start your Amazon shopping experience, no matter what you're looking for on Amazon, start it at Garden Fork, and that would be great. It's amazon.com/shop/gardenfork. That's amazon.com/shop/gardenfork. This weekend, so I'm going to say this, so now I have to commit to it, but I'm big on making no-knead bread, and I was watching somebody, they're these reenactors, they do like Revolutionary time reenacting, and they made a bread on a hearth, just in an open fire, and I thought, I wonder if we can hack no-knead bread to be done in a campfire. So that involves three of my favorite things: cast iron, no-knead bread, and open fire. So I have to
can
play
you
with
send
that.
me some of that too? If it turns out, can you send me some of that too? with the maple syrup.
I'll get the maple syrup to you. The bread, I might have to eat it.
Come on, 1-day express shipping. It can get here. It can get here.
All right, so I imagine people are pulling into their parking spot and they are thinking about quitting their jobs and going to the thrift store and then making a living. But I mean, you have a magic touch, because I don't know if people realize this, but it is incredibly hard to make a living, on the internet the way we are. And you've done really well, so it'd be fun. And I just think that people need to learn more about your world there, because it's all about using what you got, and that's one of my big things in the world.
Yeah.
Like repurposing rather than going out and buying something.
Right. And it's fun too. It's fun to just flex your creative muscle. Like you said, people are pulling into their jobs right now and they're like, oh, not another day of this. They want something to look forward to when they come home. If they have time at the end of the evening, getting the kids ready, getting some time to themselves, why not tackle a project? You may not be able to finish it in 30 minutes, but if you finish it that week, now you've got something else to look forward to than just going to work every day.
Yay. Now you can start your blog.
Exactly. And then your garage can get full too.
All right, everyone. Well, if you want more information about Serena, it's at ThriftDiving.com, or go to YouTube and type in ThriftDiving. It'll be in the show notes here. And any other questions for us, it's radio@gardenfork.tv, radio@gardenfork.tv. And Serena, you're going to go to the Garden Fork podcast page on iTunes and write us a positive review, right?
Yes, I will.
And everyone else listening, I keep harping on people to do that. So, all right.
I will do that.
Thank you, Serena.
Thank you so much, Eric. This was fun.
Garden Fork Radio's executive producer is Jimmy Goots of hollowbooks.com. And our music is licensed from uniquetracks.com.